Our next agenda item is the Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy, which we do want to get to, but I'm going, and I have Regent Varlin's approval, I'm going to set that aside for the moment so that we can move on to the Chancellor's Report. Again, we kind of set the stage this morning, and it's been great over the last 2 days to watch the collaboration between our TCATs and our community colleges. And Regent Prescott and I got some great feedback over breakfast this morning from President Boyer about all the good work around achieving the dream. So I will now turn this over to you for this exciting presentation. Thank you, Chancellor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As all of you in the room have heard by now, Achieving the Dream is an extremely important initiative that we are working on here. It's been important to me for a very long time. I've had the privilege of being a part of Achieving the Dream since 2013. And so I've seen the difference it can make in the lives of our students and in the work that we do at our colleges. So over this last year, all of our colleges have joined this initiative. We had some that had begun the process earlier, several years ago, but as of July 1st, all 13 of our community colleges will now be a part of this national network. This is important because it allows the work that we're doing within the system to have a common and proven framework for us to execute changes that we believe are extremely important to student success. After today, I hope that each of you will have a better understanding of what Achieving the Dream is and how it is a game changer for our community colleges. So that we can dive a little bit deeper into this topic, I'm actually yielding all of my time today to the people that are the experts in the field. We have today with us some very important partners from Achieving the Dream, and at this time I'm going to call on Vice Chancellor Wendy Thompson to please come forward and introduce our extremely important guests that we have with us.
Thank you, Chancellor Tidings. Good morning, Regents and colleagues. You've already heard this morning about the importance of the students. Without them, we wouldn't be here. And the students are a variety of personalities that come to us. And last night, some of you had the opportunity to play and observe the finish line game. And it allowed you to walk in the shoes of students. Regent Griscom, otherwise known as Hunter, was able to finish, as was Chris, who I think is otherwise known as Regent Hatch, finished as well. But we have students who aren't just like Hunter and Chris, but we have all types of students, and we want each and every one of them to have access to what they need in order to be successful. And we believe that our partnership with Achieving the Dream can help us do that. And this morning, we hope you come away with at least 3 things. First, an understanding of the significance of our partnership with Achieving the Dream, a sense of how our engagement with Achieving the Dream actually works, and finally, an appreciation of the results of our campuses, the results that our campuses have already realized through the early days of the partnership, and the potential to see those results scaled across the system with our system-wide partnership. We are going to pack a lot of information into a very short period of time, but we're in this for the long haul, so maybe you'll have us back. But we've also, in the interest of time, developed a booklet that you should each have. And this booklet provides some background information about Achieving the Dream, a timeline of TBR's involvement with ATD, and some specific information about each community college's plan of action, which was developed with the assistance of their ATD coaches. ATD emphasizes that we begin our work by developing a culture of evidence. So we've also included some system data because this data informs our work. I urge you to give the booklet a really thorough read later and be able to see specific examples of work and action on our campuses. And we'll also make it available to you electronically. We have an incredible lineup for you. And again, in the interest of time, I will tell you who they are and ask them to come up in order. First, we have 3 guests from Achieving the Dream, and their bios are in the booklet. Susan Mayer, the Chief Learning Officer for Achieving the Dream, David Hartleb and Renee Garcia, who are affectionately known as the Uber coaches. And by that, they coordinate the work of the coaches that are assigned throughout our system. They are also the coaches for the system office. And they also coach Nashville State and Dyersburg State. Following our ATD guests, we'll hear from President Tracy Hall and President Chris Whaley, who will give you a sense of what ATD partnership has meant on their campuses. And finally, we'll hear from Dr. Melva Black, a faculty member and head of the communications department here at Volunteer State. And she'll talk briefly with you about how the partnership impacts faculty. And I have my timer.
Wendy, just a quick question. May we feel free to chime in with any questions or comments along the way?
If you'd like to, we built in time, so I'm just saying it's for questions.
Okay, so we'll hold those to the end. And with that, Susan, welcome.
If you have a pressing
Thank
question,
you.
please feel free to intersperse. Thank you all for inviting us here today. On behalf of the leadership team at Achieving the Dream, we were thrilled to have the opportunity to come and talk with you about our partnership with the Tennessee colleges. Dr. Thompson asked me to give you an overview of Achieving the Dream with a focus on the equity work we are doing in collaboration with the Tennessee colleges. And so I have a very short presentation intended to augment the work that's in the brochure that was provided to you yesterday. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the imperative before all of us to increase student success for each student. We talk about all students, and we also talk about each student to make sure that each student has the supports that they need to be successful. And I'd like to level set using your own data because it's very impressive. And so over the last couple of years, as you know, the Tennessee colleges have achieved very strong progress in key metrics that we now know correlate with graduation and retention. And specifically impressive are the results in completion of Gateway College level English, and Gateway College level math, and specifically in Gateway College English. And as a result of a number of initiatives that have been underway over the last couple of years, graduation rates have increased significantly. But as you've seen from the data, the equity gaps continue to persist, and particularly the equity gaps between white students and African American students, which are still in the high single to low double digits. The equity gaps for white versus Hispanic students are lower than that. But combined, the equity gaps for underrepresented minorities continue to exist. And this is especially important because your data shows that over the last several years, the growth in enrollment among underrepresented minority students has been about 50% higher than it has been for white students. So this is a critical area to focus on going forward, as you know from your own strategic plan and strategic initiatives. And we all use words like diversity, inclusion, equality, and equity somewhat interchangeably, and yet they each have different goals and different strategies to achieve them. And I wanted to take just a minute to define each of them so that when I use the word equity gaps, it's clear what I'm talking about. So diversity is, we heard about diversity this morning in the first presentation about Volunteer State. So diversity it really asks us to take a look at our student population and compare, not student population and our faculty population, and compare it to the population in the area in which we serve. And does our student population mirror the service area in terms of age, in terms of race and ethnicity, in terms of gender? And so strategies for diversity are to seek student populations that might not be represented at the institution today so that overall our student population mirrors the population of the environment in which we operate. Inclusion, on the other hand, is expressed a lot today by the use of culturally responsive teaching practices in the classroom and also in advising to reflect that students bring different experiences and different life skills to the table, as we heard from the TCAP presentation in particular earlier. And about 10 years ago, when many of us, Dr. Tidings, I think you and I were doing this work at the same time, when we were looking at student success reform about 10 years ago, we thought a lot about equality. Every student will have mandatory orientation. Every student will visit with an advisor at least once in the first semester. Every student will take a first-year experience course. And while the outcomes of those strategies were very positive in terms of students making more progress, they didn't reflect the fact that students started their journeys in different places and progressed at different speeds. And so some students can't concentrate in class because they're hungry or they're homeless, or some students can't succeed in a class because they have some learning needs that aren't addressed. And so an equality strategy is not really an equity strategy because it doesn't represent the individual needs of the individual students and reflect where they are at any one point in time. And so when we talk about achieving the dream, equity, we mean the policies, the practices, the procedures, and especially the mindsets that move us from a deficit mindset that students can't do things to a growth mindset that students are able to accomplish enormous amount of achievement if we give them the supports they need, if we recognize what they need and we give them the supports they need to succeed. Any questions? So our approach to equity is that it is grounded in a principle of fairness. And that means that not only does each student need what he or she not only does each student receive what he or she needs, but that in order to do that, there's a very intentional and fundamental redesign of the student experience that's required. So we can't continue to do business the way we do business. We have to dismantle the way we do business and reconstruct it. And the good news is that, as you've seen from the report that you received, all of the action plans about the student success initiatives in Tennessee reflect what we have learned about the student experience. We know that students who gain early momentum graduate at greater rates. So students who complete college level English and math and complete 12 credits in the first semester and come back in the second fall are more likely to graduate than ones who don't. We know that academic assessments are only part of the story, that in fact Amarillo College in Texas, that I'm going to show you a snapshot of in a few minutes, did a survey of its students and found that the top 10 reasons students were not succeeding had nothing to do with academic. They were life issues: homelessness, transportation insecurity, financial insecurity, child care, and a whole range of issues, part-time attendance that schedules didn't accommodate. And so they spent multiple years creating a culture of caring to accommodate the fact and to reflect the fact that their students could not be successful in this unless these non-academic issues received the same level of attention that tutoring and learning supports and classroom instruction were receiving. We also know that interventions that aren't scaled and connected don't yield strong results. So for years we did a lot of piloting and boutique interventions, and they benefited the students who received them, but we, as an industry, were never really good at scaling those. And that student outcome, one of the things that we're really focused on increasingly is that despite all we do in the student services area to support students, the student outcomes are not going to improve significantly unless we tackle issues of teaching and learning. And so what goes on in the classroom? Students are in the classroom 90%, 95% of the time they're on campus in most of our community colleges. And so project-based learning and collaborative learning and active learning strategies that engage, as you heard in several of the presentations this morning, the students in hands-on learning and active learning and contextualized learning that enables them to think how mathematics is going to be used in their careers is increasingly important for student success. And so the action plans that were highlighted in the report Dr. Thompson gave you talk about the focus on equity and intentionally redesigning the system to achieve that through redesigning the student support systems, credit accumulation, and increasingly a focus on teaching and learning. And so ATD's role in helping support the colleges achieve this work is continuing to support the work that they have already begun, but helping be more intentional and proactive in identifying and dismantling the systemic and structural inequities that exist in all of our societies. So why is it that some students are defaulting into career choices that will not lead to high wage growth jobs, will not lead to high demand jobs, and will not lead to a journey outside of poverty? And why is it that some students actually have opportunities to explore and understand where those high wage growth and high demand growth jobs are? So by changing the mindset, altering the cultures, and altering the underlying assumptions about what we think about students, and providing all students with an opportunity to explore careers, to understand that a degree in allied health can be used in areas that might not even be well defined yet, but with the right opportunities to practice, develop critical thinking skills and analytical skills, that jobs other than very low-level allied health or low-level childcare jobs have potential to be very successful in moving students up the economic and social mobility ladder, not only strengthening lives for those students and their families, but strengthening the communities. And so if you look at the continuum of student success over the years, if we were to go back 20 years, our focus was on access. Over the last 10 years, our focus has been on completion and access. So making sure that all students have access to our open door institutions, but they also can complete the credentials for which they have aspirations. Phase 2 of our student success agenda has been focusing on student economic gain. So our students engaging in career exploration and choosing programs of study that lead to jobs that pay life-sustaining wages and that have trajectories that enable them to support themselves and their families going forward. And phase 3 of student success work that we're now really digging into is moving from whole college reform to whole community reform. And that involves partnerships with businesses and community partners, like we heard in some of the presentations already this morning, where the needs of the students, particularly non-academic needs, have been identified, but the delivery of the support services for those students is through community partners. We have certain core capabilities and certain missions that we as institutions of higher education deliver extremely well. We can't do everything, but our community has partners who, working with us strategically, can deliver those for the benefit of the economic well-being of the community. And so we as ATD are working with the colleges here in Tennessee to move that continuum from access to access and completion to economic well-being to partnerships, as some of the partnerships that have already occurred in some of these colleges, where the community is working with the community college to drive economic well-being in that community. And so that takes transformative change in the way we think about how we work with our partners. It takes transformative change in the way we restructure our institutions. So we're not just talking about changing policies and processes, but we're changing attitudes, particularly mindset attitudes about what students can do. So moving away from students can't do college level algebra, they need to go to developmental, to students given high aspirations and expectations and supports can be very successful in college algebra, as we've seen in a number of other states, and as you've seen here with a very successful co-requisite model where students are completing college level math at rates that are almost at the highest I think we've seen now in the nation. Culture and context matters. Even with a framework to do this transformational work, every institution is going to adapt that framework and to have a different theory of change based on the culture at the institution, the demographics of the students at the institution, the history of change at the institution, the propensity for knocking everything down and dismantling it and picking it up again. Every college has a different number of different levers, and the fact that the culture and the context of the institution are driving that framework is important for sustained implementation. The beauty of the Tennessee Board of Regents sponsorship of the Tennessee colleges is that there's a learning community of practice in Tennessee now. So joining Achieving the Dream, which supports about 275 colleges nationwide, enables all colleges to be part of a nationwide community of practice, sharing of good ideas, sharing of how to adapt research that comes out of places like the Community College Research Center. But in Tennessee, you have an even better community of practice because you have the contextualization of the legislature, the contextualization of your gen ed requirements, the contextualization of your articulation agreements that enable us to work with you in ways that are even more focused on the Tennessee situation, so adapting national policies to the local environment. And as I said, every college has their own theory of change. Colleges build on very strong fundamental capacities. To do this work, we believe fundamentally that we're driving not only student outcomes, but we're improving institutional outcomes. And those institutional outcomes allow this work to be sustained over a multiple-year period of time and to be evolved and continually improved, using data, building on the foundational capacities, and aligning all of the student success work at an institution under one umbrella so that everybody is rowing in the same direction, and that we implement from the start. So even if we pilot, which makes sense in a lot of classroom practices, we're piloting with a goal that we're getting the information that's necessary for us to be able to scale this institution-wide. So even high-impact practices in the classroom, like active learning, collaborative learning, and project-based learning, with some data associated with them, can be tracked, and professional development can be created around those high-impact practices so that they are scaled within the institution. And several of your institutions are starting to do that with the help of TBR's data collection capability. And so 2 examples of successful colleges that have done that. This is Amarillo College, which was the Maia Austin Award winner this year. We give 1 to 2 awards for exceptional college performance every year. This year, Amarillo College and Columbus State were the winners of that. As I mentioned earlier, Amarillo focused on the non-academic supports that students need to be successful. And they created a advisory and resource center that students could go to. So students get an intake form that helps identify the non-academic needs that students have, and then those needs are addressed through matching students with the needs that best serve them in the advocacy and research center. And as you can see from the graph on the right, the student participation in resource center visits has increased almost exponentially. That's important because generally students don't do voluntary. If students will come to something that's mandatory, this is recommending to students that there are supports that are available to you if you take advantage of them. That uptake in participation is something you don't often see, and it's because it's valuable to the students. They have learned about it. Simultaneously, Amarillo also moved away from a 16-week traditional semester format to an accelerated format where they offer all their courses in 8-week sessions. So they have a very large part-time population of students, adult learners, much like the Reconnect program, and they realized that their traditional 16-week program did not match the needs of those part-time students who couldn't go full-time in a 16-week semester, but could actually go full-time when the courses were offered in 8-week semester. So they could take 2 8 weeks back-to-back, or they could take 4 8 weeks in the course of a semester, earning somewhere between 9 and 12 credits and looking a lot like a full-time student, even though they were a student who on our books looks like someone who's gone part-time. And on the left-hand side, you can see the very significant increases in graduation as a result of the combination of these strategies. Another good example is the second Maia Austin Award winner this year, which is Columbus State in Ohio. And they were very intentional and evidence-based in their tracking of the impact of interventions on students, and realized that there was a critical mass of interventions that drove changes in student behavior. And they started to understand what the number of interventions were and what those interventions comprised in terms of the services that they were delivering. And so on the right-hand side, you can see that when less than 3 interventions were delivered, the gaps between black and white students continued to persist. But when more than 3 interventions were delivered, which is the dotted lines on the top of that graph, the gap between the students all but disappeared. And so then they started to understand, once they knew it was 3 or more interventions, they then dug deeper to understand what those interventions were and what packages of interventions were having the most success for students in different subpopulations. And as you can see also from the graph on the left, the 3-year graduation and transfer out rate has increased significantly over the period of time. So there's evidence from Tennessee that your emphasis on student success and equity and holistic and comprehensive reform is working. You're seeing it already. There's evidence in other states to show that it's working nationally. CCRC documented the work of several of your colleges in the early momentum metric growth and the correlations that that has with graduation retention. So we're thrilled to be partnered alongside of you, pushing, nudging, and perhaps bringing some of this experience from other colleges to the table to help take you to the next level along that student success agenda. So thank you.
So may I ask you a question?
Yes.
this is interesting to see the data today. Are we able to learn enough, particularly in Tennessee, to say we can take some of the learning and take it down to K to 12 so that we are able to help get those students better prepared before they come to our community colleges? The Commissioner of Education remains as a member of this board, so it's great to have that connection with us. But when you see this, I think you want to look back and say, are there some things that we're learning here in Achieving the Dream that we could share as a best practice back in the K to 12 system so that they also then are benefiting from what we're seeing, some of the intervention and things like that? Is that part of what you all look at and part of what is how this could be applied?
Yes, it is. I would say that generally, as an industry, we have focused more on what goes on at the institution, but this, we talk, and then we've done a lot of focus on what happens when students transfer to the 4 years and how do we align that. It is clear that we're not doing a good enough job on preparing students to be successful in the K through, and it's not a seamless transition from K through 12. So we've talked a lot about the importance of career exploration to understand, so students have information about choosing programs of study that make sense. A lot of that work can be done in K through 12 in partnership with the public school system. We know that bridge programs work for students to reinforce foundational skills in math, science, and in English. And those bridge programs either happening in the high schools or happening in the summer between students come. So yes, some states are actually even having faculty work together to align competencies of courses that students take in the last couple of years of high school in particular with the first college courses they take here at college. Yes. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce David Hartleb and Renee Garcia.
Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm David Hartleb, and my partner is Renee Garcia. I represent the leadership coach part of this partnership, and Renee, the data coach part of it. Wendy has asked us to speak briefly about what we do as coaches, which is a little bit of a challenge. And I could probably talk for a day or two about this, but I just have a few minutes. So I hope you understand that this is going to be a kind of a concise version of what we do. I thought it might be helpful for me to say to you that when we approach a college as coaches, we sort of think of approaching it with 3 phases. The first phase is the collection of data, because we think data is foundational, as does the Tennessee Board of Regents, and as you do as a board, I can tell. We tend to focus on a set of data that we call the ATD, or Achieving the Dream metrics, which have been decided upon based upon years of experience and also a great deal of research from the Community College Research Center at Columbia University, which I think is the gold standard for research in community colleges. I'm not going to go into what they are, but we focus a lot on that, and that is the quantitative data. A lot of it has to do with leading measures about how students are performing in their first semester. We also focus on qualitative data, which there are many sources of it, but our main one is what we call the ICAT, or Institutional Capacity Assessment Tool, which is a self-assessment instrument developed by Achieving the Dream. We have asked each of your colleges to administer this, and they have. And it produces a self-assessment around a set of 7 capacities, such as leadership and equity and data and technology. I won't go through them all. And that qualitative data combined with the quantitative data then we need to analyze that. What does it tell us? So we got a lot of numbers on a piece of paper. What do we do with it? And again, we work at saying, well, here's perhaps what this means. And we typically look for where the largest problems are. We don't like to solve little boutique problems, but let's take on the big issues. We do this often with a data team, which is a group of people from the college, usually led by the institutional research director, but consisting of a broad-based group of faculty, typically people who like numbers, because we're asking them to deal with it. And we also ask that the data team do a lot of sharing this data with the campus so that it's just not a small group of people that are learning all these important things, but they have data summits and brown bag lunches and things like that. The second phase of coaching is to plan based upon the data. What did the data tell us? Now what are we going to do about it? And this is what the cohort of colleges that we're working with this year have just completed, and in the little brochure that you got are the priority goals for all the action plans. These plans were developed by the core teams, again, another group that we asked the colleges to put together, a broad-based group of people who looked at the data, picked the 2 or 3 things that they thought were most important. Doesn't mean they couldn't have picked 7 or 8, but we urge them not to pick too many so they don't overstretch their resources. And we also ask them that, as Susan just told you, to develop plans that are scalable, which I remember when I was a president of a college, we developed a plan that wasn't scalable, and I never felt more foolish. So I don't want anybody else to go through that. Now, when you look at your booklet and you see all the colleges with their plans, you notice that it's 2 or 3. But what I want you to know is that each plan probably has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 initiatives or interventions associated with them to make that plan happen. So there are a lot of moving parts to these plans. Then we get to the third phase of coaching, and that is what we call execution, which is what the colleges will start to do in September. And what I have to tell you is execution, it turns out, based upon experience and a lot of impressive research, is actually the most difficult. In fact, in my experience over many years of coaching, I would estimate that 50% of the colleges that I have coached have a significant failure with execution. And it's really easy to understand if you think about it. That's where people actually have to go out and start behaving differently. The staff, the faculty, the administration have had a lot of fun looking at data, or maybe not fun, but a lot of interesting times looking at data and creating exciting plans to address those problems. But now they have to show up to work every morning and do something different today than they did yesterday. It's change, and change is very, very difficult. So your colleges, at least in the 2018 cohort, are about to enter their most challenging part of their experience with achieving the dream. They will need lots of support. They will need lots of encouragement. They will need some sense of accountability, which is typically reporting to the core team and getting feedback. And we also encourage them to develop evaluation plans so that as they are developing this execution, they can tell right away whether it's working or not. And if not, in the sense of continuous quality improvement, they modify it before, you don't wait till the end of the year. So, and finally, it's not part of a phase or anything, but we strongly encourage colleges to celebrate. I really appreciated Dr. Faulkner's presentation when he said they celebrate whenever they can. That's an achieving the dream idea, and we congratulate him. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Renee.
Good morning. Yes, students are individuals, but as a data nerd, I have to admit, I love the facts and figures that you guys threw out this morning. Although I have to admit, this is the first time I've heard a report on miles and pounds. I usually don't see that. Maybe coaching brings 3 elements to the table. One of them is structure, and David made reference to that via the action plans. We provide a structure for the work, but we do not impose the work. That has to be done by the colleges. As David mentioned, we provide encouragement. This is hard work, and it's full of ups and downs, quite frankly. And a lot of the work is long-term. So folks are anxious to see short-term gains. And that is why, again, celebrating wins is really, really, really important. In my jargon, those are your leading indicators that you celebrate. Doing that actually allows people to stay motivated and face the challenges that will be there without a doubt. And finally, we provide nagging. I think David called it accountability. We provide an outsider's perspective. We ask questions, sometimes uncomfortable questions. Sometimes we push folks because we don't believe what they're telling us, quite frankly. We do frequent check-ins. We visit in person. And we try to facilitate courageous conversations, especially around equity, as you have seen that as a critical element. And in closing, I'd like to say that part of the reason that I am here is because Dr. Boyer has provided chocolate. And I have to admit, I was not a chocolate person until I met her. So she has been an undue influence in my life. And I have a message for Dr. Jackson and Dr. Ashford, because David and I coach Chattanooga and Nashville and Dyersburg, that at least I expect chocolate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Oh, go ahead, Regent Green, sorry.
When we look at, just looking at page 9, and I love the fact that graduation rates, when you look at the minority community in comparison, graduation rates are continuing to increase. Retention rates seem stable. But what's startling is that the freshman enrollment variance is so large. Could you talk to how Achieving the Dream is capturing students from that minority community and making sure that once you have that student, then you can deploy all the different methods and keeping them in school and having them graduate? But it seems like there's a huge variance in just capturing those students.
And I think there is that problem nationwide. You guys do not have a monopoly on it, and I'm afraid we do not have the magic bullet. However, Achieving the Dream, coincidentally, just this year merged with Gateway to College, and they do a lot of work in the K through 12 arena. And in many states, including Tennessee, you have a very robust dual credit program, and that is a wonderful on-ramp, because students who participate in dual credit not only have a tendency to go to college, but to do well once they arrive. Yet, there are significant differences in who participates in dual credits. Generally, the dual credit student, quite frankly, is white and female. And in terms of addressing issues before they get to you, I'm going to advocate for dual credit, as that is a wonderful on-ramp. And here's the problem with dual credit. Almost always there is an element that requires a standardized test score, and that needs to be looked at because there's a long research history where standardized tests perhaps don't assess the skills of all students in the same way. So I hope I got close to answering your question.
I would hope that you all might be able to look at a program like Tennessee Promise and help us better understand as a system. I know we look at it, Chancellor, but what does it mean if a student is asked to do community service? How does that impact the outcome? How does that help with a graduation rate? How does that help in attracting students who want to come across the board, that there's going to be that additional requirement that sort of helps you, I think, with some life type skills. So I hope down the road, since you describe yourself as the data nerd, that kind of information, I think, helps not just us, but probably the whole state in understanding a program like that and how it might impact the kind of results we're looking for.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that that community service is going to end up being a significant contributor for the following reason. One of the most critical elements in student success is almost beyond the strategies, is the ability for students to make connections with the institution and with other students. And community work is a very intentional way to create those connections that actually go beyond the classroom. So I'm willing to put a couple of bucks that you guys are along the right road, and I would love to collect data and hopefully prove my statement correct.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I'm intrigued by the conversation that Regent Griscom is having, because the connection between K-12 and the community colleges is so critical. I mean, that is, and there are things that are going on both academically and otherwise. For instance, the sales program, which you spoke about, the math and the readiness for math and so forth. But it would seem we have a structure whereby these promise students have mentors, and part of the process is to make that mentoring easy. But it just seems to me that it would be really interesting for mentors to have some training that alerted them to the kinds of signs and signals about those areas that are going to require student support, those areas that are non-academic. If there was some way to really hone the ability of the mentors to pick out those kinds of things and be able somehow to communicate those with the schools, they know where the students are going, that could also help.
And just to be sure, are you referring to mentors at the college level?
I'm actually referring to the mentors that are assigned to our Promise students when they are signing up or going into that program. They have mentors all during the year, and the idea there, which I think is good, is that someone other than the person in the school is, have you taken, have you filled out your FAFSA? Have you done this? And trying to continue to push them along in that process of getting into school. But it seems like maybe a missed opportunity to help in some way to identify some
Yeah, I
other
wish I were
issues.
more familiar with what those mentors do. We certainly believe from research and again experience that the period from when a student in effect applies to the college until the student registers throughout the summer is often in a college a lost opportunity. Mm-hmm. And the research says that this is the chance when you really need to meet with students, preferably one-on-one, and do a very thorough assessment of their goals, their ambitions, their dreams, but also their circumstances.
Yeah.
Whether they have problems with hunger or food, or whether they're academically prepared. Often that happens way too late, and we're all pushing together to get that to happen over that summer, assuming they're applying over the summer. It could happen later if they're applying in the spring. Typically that happens with a really trained advisor, and I can't see any reason why it couldn't happen with a trained mentor. But you're really, I think we agree completely with what you're saying. That's what needs to happen way in advance of anybody showing up, any student showing up.
That is a good point. And if I could just add, because I'm a mentor, is that there actually is a place in the process when it first starts with that mentor, that there's a goal-setting place, and it could just even start that conversation with what are some obstacles, in a very easy way to ask those questions, but that aren't, because you just first meet this young person. But this is just involving first semester freshmen. It is limited to that, so it doesn't really cover the entire gamut of that, but it is that one piece. I just wanted to point that out.
Great place to start, though.
You mentioned nagging, and for us as a board, obviously, I think you've seen from, we're not afraid to ask questions. We're on and off of our campuses frequently. The chancellor's great at keeping us posted on things, and we're not hesitant to pick up the phone and call her. But what other kinds of practices have you seen from boards that help to drive this process towards success?
Well, a critical element I believe you have already taken, which is to make a very explicit and intentional commitment, not only to student success, but to equity. Further, you put your money where your mouth has been, because here we are. And you went in as a system. And maybe I shouldn't have said nagging, maybe I should have said accountability. But one of the things that you as a board can do is to nag about student success and about equity and ask questions in terms of what is happening. And hopefully, we would have trained the colleges we work with to handle those difficult questions, as I hope we would have posed them first.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, and thank you, Susan. So, very well done. And now, Dr. Thompson, we have Dr. Hall and Dr. Whaley. Is that right? There they are. Here they come.
Good morning, Regents. Good morning, Chancellor. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come today and share with you just a abbreviated version of Dr. Whaley and I presented at the American Association for Community Colleges annual meeting in April. And we were able to share with them what we're doing here in Tennessee to implement Achieving the Dream. So leading change, how two presidents implemented Achieving the Dream. So why we joined Achieving the Dream? Why did we join Achieving the Dream? When I started in the fall of 2015, these were the numbers that I was faced with. We had a 7-year decline in enrollment, 45% fall-to-fall, full-time student retention, 30% fall-to-fall, part-time student retention, and a 5% graduation rate. So that was my welcome to Tennessee. And I gladly took on that challenge. We also had been experiencing equity gaps, 53% fall-to-fall retention rate for our Caucasian students and a 41% fall-to-fall retention rate for African-American students. So when Susan Mayer, who is our leadership coach, talked about the imperative before us, this was the imperative before us at Southwest. In addition, prior to my arrival, the college had partnered with Huron Consulting Group to do an environmental scan both internally and externally to see exactly what the community internally and externally thought about the college and our success or lack thereof. And here were this was a larger report, but two things that really struck me. Both internal and external stakeholders identified service to students from pre-admissions forward as in vital need of improvement. In addition, the admissions processes and customer service at the pre-enrollment stage were perceived as hindering students. So there are things that students come to us for which we cannot control. We can address, but we cannot control. But what we saw was that there were things that we were doing internally at the college that we could control. So you're having students come to us with challenges and we're making it harder. So we can control that, and so that's what we needed to do. Again, the imperative before us. This was our process, basically. So we're having the decline in enrollment and the lack of student retention and completion, and we're saying, why is this happening? Well, this is why. Basically, this is what our process was. Students would start, and we just say, okay, good luck. Figure it out getting there. One exercise that I did at the college early on, I had all of the student affairs staff to say, tell me visually, just stand in order of where a student would begin and what would that process be. And they were running into each other and confused, and I said, okay, stop. If you don't know, then students won't know. If you don't know what comes next or comes first, then students don't know. Again, the imperative before us. We cannot look like that and expect results. And so our approach, Dr. Faulkner talked about the big, hairy, audacious goal. We just call it the big, audacious goal. And it was to focus on redesigning, reinventing, resetting the student experience. There was no tinkering around the edges. As Susan talked about, we just cannot fix one part of the college because it's a system. Everything is connected. So we had to deconstruct and rebuild. It could not be another initiative. Faculty do not want to embark upon, am I right, Regent Summons, yet another initiative. And so this would have to be what we do. This is what we do. And not another death by committee project, because in higher ed we love committees and we love to talk a long time. And at the end of a year or more, we still have not come to a conclusion. We could not do that. And so we had to have aggressive timeline with quick wins and long-term transformation. We had to fundamentally change how we do business. And so we set about doing that. This was our ATD Student Success Org structure, in which there I had to identify someone, and it couldn't come from me because it would be viewed as top down. And so thankfully we have a very talented faculty member, Cindy Abadie, who has been our faculty champion, long-term faculty member, very well respected. And so Cindy, I appointed her as the program director for Achieving the Dream. We looked at all of the areas that we had our challenges. Where were those challenges in, and that we need to look at and redesign? The connection, entry, completion, progress, that's ATD's lost momentum framework. And so we're looking at from pre-admission forward, but where are those gaps? Where are we losing students? And so we had Cindy Abadie as the project director, and we had different chairs of those various committees to look at all of those areas. We also had, as we call them, our consultants, our ATD consultants. So IT, marketing, because we needed to make sure we were communicating all along the way what we were doing. IT, of course, the technology, and then the data. Because all the committees, after we started talking about data, everyone wanted to see more numbers, which was a good thing. Even though the numbers weren't great, they still wanted to see them. And so there was a call to action in October at our convocation where we reviewed the student process. We said we're going to review the student process from recruitment to completion and beyond. These committees had to be intentionally structured. And so it was really wonderful to see more than 200 faculty and staff and administrators, students and community partners said, we want to be a part of those committees. We want to work in this process. We want to redesign. I said, you're going to create the college that you want to see. And so more than 200 people. We had even more than that, and so we had to develop a review committee. So those second pair of eyes that would look at all of our work. The committee chairs facilitated this discussion rather than dictated what we were going to arrive, because we didn't know. We wanted to break down silos, academic affairs, student affairs silos. We had merged in name Shelby State and State Tech, but what we also still experienced 15 years later is that we still had people with a State Tech mind and a Shelby State mind. And so that's how we operated. And so some of the processes that were communicated to students, it depended on if a person was from State Tech or from Shelby State. And I said, we are Southwest. So we cannot continue to operate as separate institutions. So we have to break down all of those silos, which meant that, again, the intentional structuring of those committees had to have people from all across the campus, regardless of if they came from State Tech or Shelby State. In that work, we created over 30 process maps. So all of those areas from admissions, pre-admission forward, we had to do process maps. Again, people didn't know what to tell students. We didn't even know how things worked. Again, it was Shelby State, it was a State Tech process. We had to come up with the Southwest way. And that graphic that you see and that you have as a handout, the Southwest process map, that's just an example of all of the business process maps that we had to do in order to see, okay, where are we having problems? With those process maps, we celebrated everything. So we had a gallery walk in which we had all of the maps on poster boards in the library, and the college was invited to come and look at the various processes to provide feedback if they saw things that maybe the committee didn't see, to give their feedback and their recommendations for improvements of the student affairs, student services process. So we saw some quick wins and some long-term transformation. We hope will continue to be long-term transformation. So fall 27 by the numbers, again, quick wins. We stopped the bleeding of our students. We stopped the 7-year decline. So we saw an immediate 10% increase in enrollment, a 3% increase in fall to fall full-time retention from 45% to 48%. Our 2017 graduating class was 26% larger than our 2016 class, and we doubled our graduation rate from 5 to 10%. We're not shouting from the rooftop that 10% is great, but it is much better than 5%. We're going in the right direction. And then just this year, we saw that we had a 13% increase in the number of associate degrees awarded, which we really celebrated because that's one of our outcomes measured. So again, we're moving in the right direction. Still more work to be done, though, but we saw even in 2017 the beginning of closing up equity gaps with retention of our Caucasian students from 53 to 55%. So again, all of the work that we're doing, everyone is improving. Everyone is getting to their goals. Retention of African American students went from 41% to 45%, which narrowed the achievement gap by 2%. So there was a 12% gap, equity gap. It went to 10%. It's small gains. So what did we put in place to get to those numbers? How did we get those quick wins? We developed a case management model. I won't go through all of those in detail, but a case management model. We had to hold students' hands when they needed them. What we would do was say, just go to your portal and just look and get your information. Well, if you're first generation students, you have no idea about a portal. And so we were using languages those students understood what we were talking about and they did not. So we have a case management model. We went to professional advisors. Faculty members became mentors. So the faculty still are engaged with the students, but more from talking about careers as opposed to really sitting down with them and enrolling them in classes. So we have professional advisors. We have academic maps. Again, what's happening in the classroom, we needed to know. When students come, you have to have a path. And where are you going? And so the faculty did a great job with establishing these clear academic maps. Policy revision, so that 26% increase in our graduation 2017 over 2016, it was simple. What we saw was that we were asking students to file for graduation, their application in November. Well, students tend to want to know if they've passed that fall semester before they apply for graduation because they don't know. But our policy said, no, you have to do this by November. We simply just changed it to April. And so more students knew that they had passed the classes, and so they could apply for graduation. We developed a policy, and we were having students to abide by a policy that was an obstacle to their success. And so we changed it. We also added a mental health counselor, a social services counselor. All those out-of-class issues that students face, we needed to address them. In year 3, we moved from calling it achieving the dream to just student success. It is what we do. That's the business of the college. The recommendations from our year 1 and our year 2 were incorporated into the strategic plan. So those committees and all of the work that they did, they made it very clear to me that we do not want to do all of this work and you do nothing with it. So I said, we will do something with it. And so their recommendations became our strategic plan. And we have developed a Student Success Council which monitors that strategic plan. It's the accountability and the focus on data. This 4th year, we will be laser focused on equity and teaching and learning. We need to make sure that we're continuing to close those equity gaps, and we have to make sure that we are seeing what is going on in the classroom so that we can do that. Thank you, and it's my pleasure to, first of all, if there are no questions for me, Dr. Whaley. Yes, Dr. Whaley. Okay, thank you. I was just over here.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Vice Chair, Chancellor, members of the board. Thanks for giving us a few moments to talk about something that's really, I think you can tell, energized us. And I will say that it has been as critical to us as anything as we have moved toward being more success-minded at Roane State. There is simply no way to overstate the importance of the folks at Achieving the Dream. And so When you look at Rome State, thumbnail sketch, there are many things about our community college that would not look too dissimilar from many of our other colleges. High percentage of need for remediation, financial aid needs, etc. But then there are some things particular to Rome State that are a little bit unique about us. And when our Achieving the Dream coaches first came in and sat down with us, as you already heard, sort of the discussion, okay, so what's the big elephant in the room? What are you really struggling with? And at Rome State, one of our main positives is also one of the things that we struggle with. We have these 9 campuses spread out over all these counties and 2 time zones. That gives us great access, meaning that a lot of times students have less distance to drive to their campus, but it also inhibits us a little bit when we're trying to reach out to them, particularly when we're trying to onboard them. And despite, frankly, the fact that we have all these campuses, we still, because of hills and cutback roads, we still have a number of students who have a greater than 30-minute drive to get to any one of our campuses. So we're really impressed when our coaches came in and said, okay, well, let's try to tackle this. Let's try to think through how we're going to get to the place where we get some initiatives in place, again, being really focused on data, but not only on the initiatives themselves, but I was really, really taken by the fact of the way that Achieving the Dream helped us think about the way that we were going to both develop these initiatives, but then also roll them out and communicate them, because we wanted, again, not a kind of a one and done. We knew this was going to be a great, big, again, audacious plan that we needed to clearly communicate. We needed to be able to come back to it to show our folks sort of where we were progress-wise, show our students where we were progress-wise, and then show what was yet to be done. So what we came up with and what we keep coming back to, and I think you have this as a handout, is our Rome State Student Success Vision, which we've laid out as a roadmap. Whether it's the road to Rome State, whether it's the road that many of our transfer students will have to one of our university partners, or whether it's the road that many of our career and certificate degree-seeking and certificate-seeking students will have to their career. And so we'll come back to this at the end, but I wanted to show you again as we move forward, we really are grateful for Achieving the Dream, that not only were they working with us on the specific initiatives, but also then on the way to communicate it in a way that would have sticking power. And we keep coming back to this. Every single fall semester at convocation, every single meeting that we have, we come back. So where are we? What's next in our success vision? And so for us, again, the things, just to highlight a couple of the initiatives that our coaches work with us on that you may be familiar with, but just in case you are not, our degree maps certainly are very, very important to us. These are, we have one of these rather for every single program at our college. I've put in front of you the one for nursing because we have so many students who come to Rome State desiring to be nurses. And obviously you have the standard course requirements. Those are laid out by semester. But what we're really thinking is a major difference for us is that we're trying to let them know about a day in the life, reasons to consider this program, things that you might like about it, and frankly, before you go into nursing, things that you need to understand, that hey, if you don't like biology, you're probably in the wrong program. If you don't like being on your feet, you're probably in the wrong program. So these are things we want them to know, not in any way to discourage them, but we want them to go in eyes open. So we have one of these degree maps for every single program, degree and certificate at Rome State that we use with our students. But our goals for our new advising model couldn't be limited to degree maps, as great as we think those are, but also when we onboard our students, because we are so spread out. Often in the past we had the situation where students were assigned to an academic faculty advisor who might be located in a campus that was a couple of hours away from them, which simply did not work. So we needed to find a way to onboard our students. We needed to find a single point of contact to provide assistance with them, not only academic, not only career, not only making that first connection that you've heard is so important, but also we think really this is the key piece for this program, is the ability for these folks also to talk to our students about their financial aid issues and those needs. And so to eliminate barriers in time and distance, or try to do that, we developed our Success Coach model, which we started off with 8. We have now bumped that up to 16. These are all full-time folks who onboard every single new student coming to Roane State, whether they are first-time freshmen, whether they are returning students, whatever the case is. Every student, whether they are traditional, non-traditional, gets assigned a success coach. This person walks them through onboarding, walks them through the first 24 credit hours at Roane State, and at that point, they are transitioned to a faculty advisor to advise them on career transfer, pathway planning, things of those nature. Our success coach model, again, is by campus. So if I'm a student in Jellicoe and I'm going to attend at the La Follette campus of Roane State, that's where my success coach is. That is going to be my one point of contact for probably every single question that I have as a student during my first 2 semesters at Roane State. These are folks that I will tell you are among the best trained, or probably the best trained folks we have ever had at Roane State Community College. When I say it is a 3-month rigorous training, I am here to tell you it is rigorous. So these are experts not only in admissions, financial aid, career exploration, and academic programming. They go through classes Monday through Thursday. They do weekly assessments on Friday. They must score 100% on each one of those before they move along. It's not okay to get 70% if you're going to help students. So we have a wide variety of opportunities for them. And then after they are finished, the training does not stop. They meet every 6 weeks for updates because if you've ever dealt with financial aid, you know that what is true today is not necessarily true tomorrow. What's working? Well, we focus a lot of times, I think rightly so, and I'm sorry the numbers really here are too small to see, but a lot of times we focus on the data that you have in front of you. It's very important about retention, about completion, but also we're very pleased that our great data coach, Linda Hagedorn, of whom I cannot say enough good things, also wanted to make sure that we were focusing on student perception. So twice during the THEC cycle, we do the SENSE survey. This is the entering student engagement survey to kind of see, how are students perceiving their experience? In every single one of those categories, again, that I know are too small to see, you will see students reporting back to us that since the implementation of the Success Coach model, they feel much more engaged. They feel much more like they are making a key critical connection with Roane State at the very outset. They feel that they are being taken care of. They feel like they are being welcomed. And those are things that I don't need for us to gloss over. I mean, there are all kinds of important data points, but how students perceive their experience, I think, is just as important as any other. And so getting back to our roadmap for success, again, we sort of bifurcate this into 2 areas, and this has already been alluded to, but I think it can't be overstressed. I think Roane State has tackled a whole lot of the incoming, onboarding, student support areas. We're not perfect, but we have tackled a lot of great big areas there. Now it's time for us, as you've heard from Susan and others, to move to the academic success, because you can't reform one without reforming the other. So I think we've done a pretty good job in trying to get ahead and now collect data and see where we are with our student success initiatives, the coaches, the degree maps, etc. You will see there on the left the Beyond Financial Aid initiatives. This is very important for us. Moving into this year, we're working to ensure that we have a food pantry on every single one of our 9 campuses. We know the direct correlation, obviously, between hunger and the inability to do your work or concentrate really for that much on anything. In the middle, we have at the bottom there student-centered scheduling, which is another very important area for us that we've partially implemented. For years, as a professor, I just went to my dean and submitted a class schedule and said, I want to teach on these days at this time. Now, hopefully, as a program director, I would take into consideration when other classes were offered that my students needed, but there was not a holistic, not an institution-wide look at just how are we scheduling. Are we scheduling in silos, or are we scheduling for student success? And I think the answer, unfortunately, was the former rather than the latter. We've tried to change that through the implementation of a really powerful analytic software program called InfoSilum that takes all 9 of our campuses in both time zones, all the majors, all the things that students need as far as day, evening, weekend, accelerated, and then puts out a schedule schedule of, these are when your students need the classes. And so we want to be guided not only in what we're doing as we onboard, not only what we're doing in the classroom that I'll mention in a minute, but also when the classes are offered. We're going to do great things in the classroom. If the students can't take them, then it's all for naught. And then finally, and I'll wrap up with this, when we talk about the academic success, it fits in really well with a lot of the things that the board office is doing here with the academic mindset initiatives. We're really grateful for that leadership. Also, as Dr. Faulkner mentioned, we're going through our SACS COC 10-year reaffirmation, and our QEP project is one that is based on active and collaborative learning, so that when we talk to our faculty members now and training them about when you get these students in class, let's make sure a couple of things are happening. Number one, that they are working on real-world examples and real-world application of the things that they're learning in your class. And number two, heavens, let's make sure that they are working together so that communication and teamwork and things of that nature can be built. So our SACS COC QEP is all built around active and collaborative learning, so I appreciate Susan's mentioning of that. All right. Questions for the two of us? Please.
Dr. Whaley, I know you've been at Rome State since you were 5, because you told me that. So I know you've got hundreds of years of experience there.
Well, I was actually I hate to correct you, I was about 9 months old, so I had about the same amount of hair then as I do now, just a little shorter.
My second board meeting was 2 years ago, and we were at your campus. And I remember walking on a tour into the student success area, and I was quite impressed with the 4 or 5 young ladies that were doing that full-time, and now I see you've got 16. So how in the world can we get that best practice that you've instituted there throughout all of our community colleges?
Well, again, and I would never say that, one size fits all, but there are aspects of it, I think, that are helpful, and many of my colleagues, presidents in the audience, have been to our institution. Chancellor Tidings, when she was at Chattanooga State, was the first that came and looked at our success coach model. Dr. Seymour has probably been the most recent and has done an adaptation of it, and so I think that is happening, sir. We are glad to share, warts and all, because it's far from all sunshine and roses. But it's it's a major transition, but it's one that I think is at least headed in the right direction. And Regent Griscom, pardon me, I appreciate the great robust discussion involving K-12, and I know this question was not directed toward me, but if you'll allow me, I think those are exactly the right questions among many others to ask. And one of the things that I don't want us to lose sight of is the opportunity that I think we have to reach down, not only with career exploration, which is important, not only with help with remediation, with sales and other things like that, and not only through great things like dual credit and dual enrollment, where we give students a taste of college, but I think that we have shown, whether you call the program middle college or call it something else, I think there are far more opportunities that we can take advantage of for high school students to become our completers while they are in high school, whether that's a welding certificate, whether that's cosmetology, whether that's AAS mechatronics, or a student who's going to ultimately be a transfer engineering major to Tennessee Tech that starts with us. So thank you for those comments. Sorry? Yes, please, I'm sorry.
First, to both of you, I applaud your movement to simplifying the enrollment process. It's been a long time ago, but the enrollment process used to be one that almost kept me from getting a college degree. You mentioned 16 full-time source individuals involved. Yes. Out of how many students? How many students does that cover? What's the student population?
Yeah, so we have a student population of just under 6,000 total head count. Mm-hmm. Each of those success coaches has an advisee load, if you will, of somewhere between 220 and 240, thereabouts.
And how many faculty?
How many faculty members at Rome State? About 150.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well done. That was impressive. Thank you.
While Dr. Black comes up, I also want to mention that Rome State this year was designated as an Achieving the Dream Leader College. There were 6 nationally, and Rome State was one.
Thank you to the Regents and Chancellor Tiding for having me this morning, and thank you, Dr. Thompson, for the invitation. I'd like to share 3 experiences that I think speak to the impact of achieving the dream process on faculty and ultimately student outcomes. First, approximately 5 years ago, the communication department began talks about alternative teaching materials for one of our gen ed courses. At that time, we didn't know the open education resource terminology, but we knew we had the voices and experiences of diverse student population that suggested the materials created a monetary barrier and a disconnect with their lived experiences. Fast forward to this summer, we are now piloting the very first OER course across disciplines, any discipline at Volunteer State. This is just one example of a faculty-led initiative that addresses not only access but equity. Secondly, I recently attended the ATD conference in Minneapolis with several of my colleagues, learning about culturally responsive practices. The sessions challenged us to think about cognitive load of students navigating white space in a classroom. Ask ourselves if our curriculums are culturally responsive and acknowledge inequities in how we design teaching and learning for a predominantly white, monolithic Western classroom. From that experience, the Vol State team is now working to establish a faculty teaching and learning center to serve as a facilitator of conversations on equity, as well support and even generate ideas for teaching and student engagement to reduce barriers of retention and completion. Finally, during the 2018 fall semester, I launched a retention and completion initiative called Men of Color Achieving Success, known by its acronym MOCAS, in response to a need to creatively engage an underperforming and underrepresented population. With 2 semesters under our belt, we have 100% retention. Conversations that span the globe but lend themselves to educational maturity. Faculty and staff of diverse representations providing support. But most important, a space for students to feel valued, have a sense of connection and belonging. This is just a finite representation of the impact achieving the dream can have on faculty's ability to create fair, equitable, and a just environment for students to learn and grow. Through ATD, we now have tools by which we can sharply change the vicissitudes of life for many of our students. Thank you very much.
Well, that was a lot of information and a little bit more time than I thought we had, but we appreciate your patience and your engagement. Also in your packets is a copy of the ATD Model Equity Statement. Regent Reynolds, I think you had asked to see that because the diversity policy changes that you will vote on in a few minutes were modeled on that statement. Again, we'll provide an electronic copy of the booklet to you and to the presidents. I want to thank Matthew Gann and Kim on his staff for producing those booklets for us. They do a fabulous job, and we're very fortunate to have them as a resource. Again, thank you for allowing us this time. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
I would just like to close by thanking Dr. Meyer, Dr. Hartleb, and Dr. Garcia for joining us from Achieving the Dream. It was very important to have you here and bring that national perspective voice for us. Thank you to our presidents, to our faculty member for giving the college level perspective on what we're doing. I also would be remiss if I did not thank Dr. Thompson for the work that she has done at the system level office in pulling all of this together. She has really embraced this work, and it has become a large part of what goes on in her office. And so I thank you greatly, Dr. Thompson, for what you're doing, and also to all 13 of the college presidents for embracing this mission of student success and students being first at our colleges. So thank you.
No, well said. And I just want to add to Dr. Black, whom I've had the occasion to meet on a few occasions up here. Thank you for leading some courageous conversations on this campus. So well done. It's always a pleasure to see you. That was really a valuable hour or so, I think, for all of us. So thank you, Chancellor, for arranging this, and to everybody for this tremendous effort that's underway. It's very exciting. With that, why don't I turn back to Regent Varlin, and let's pick up where we left off with our Regents Award for Philanthropy.
Yes, and thank you. It's always a pleasure to recognize our wonderful philanthropist. The Tennessee Board of Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy is a unique designation. It is given only to the most honored and devoted philanthropist for their support of our institution throughout the TBR system. Today, we are proud to recognize the Richard Donner family with the 2019 Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy. Mr. Richard Donner's family was nominated by Dr. Karen Boyer, president of Dyer State Community College. For over 30 years, Richard and Martha Donner have contributed to the Dyersburg State Annual Fund. An initial gift of $112,964 was donated to Dyersburg State in 1991 to establish the Richard and Martha Donner Endowed Scholarship. This scholarship has increased in value to $189,309 and has benefited many students since 1991. Mr. Richard Donner has been very active in the community as well. He was chairman of the board of Dyersburg Fabric, chairman of the board of McIver's Grant Public Library, and a board member of First American Bank. Dyersburg State Community College gratefully remembers his service as foundation board member, trusted advisor, and generous benefactor. As a result, the nature trail and arboretum on the Dyersburg State campus was named in honor of Richard Donner. Martha Donner continued the charitable legacy that she and her husband established in 1985 until her death in 2017. Her annual contributions to Dyersburg State Community College have supported the Memphis Symphony performance at Dyersburg State, the Dyersburg State Community College Foreign Student Exchange Program, as well as the Richard and Martha Donner Endowed Scholarship. The Martha W. Donner Outdoor Classroom was named in her honor on October 5th, 2003. Their son, Richard Donner, has also been a strong advocate for Dyer State Community College for many years, and he has generously contributed to the college and has served on the Dyersburg State Community College Foundation Board and the Annual Fund Campaign Committee for more than 19 years. As the executive of the Donner Private Foundation, Mr. Donner contributes $10,000 annually to the Richard H. Wheeler Scholarship at Dyersburg State Community College. The members of the Donner family are truly advocates for higher education, and their contributions reflect commitment to educating our workforce and building our local communities. The Donner family's cumulative giving total to Dyersburg State is $563,301. Their generous support has affected the lives of students and afforded Dyersburg State the opportunity to elevate the region's educational attainment. Dyersburg State Community College is honored to have the Donner family as a community partner and supporter. The Richard Donner family are deserving of this honor of receiving the Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy for their unwavering commitment to and compassion for higher education. The award presentation took place on June 11th at Dyersburg State Community College with, as you see in the picture, Regent Lee Shockey assisting with the presentation. On behalf of the Tennessee Board of Regents, we are proud to recognize the Richard Donner family's excellence in philanthropy. And for additional comments, I would like to ask Dr. Karen Boyer to please step toward the podium.
Well, thank you very much, Regent Varlin and members of the board and Chancellor. It's really wonderful that you make this opportunity available to us to recognize families like the Donner family. In this photo, of course, is the son, Richard, and when I started at Dyersburg State back in late 84, early 85, I think it was then Chancellor Roy Nix says you need to get started on raising some money. He said, we have this new Center of Emphasis program for the community colleges, and you have to pay a match in order to get some state money through the Center of Emphasis. So we got started, and Dick and Martha Donner were really some of our first donors. Luckily, they were neighbors down the street from me, so they couldn't get too far away. And they have helped for years, as you've heard, for now over 34 years. And it's made a tremendous difference in our community. And luckily, we have other families just like them. But they're really special people, and thank you for making this award. And we really appreciate Lee Shockey driving all the way from Rossville, Tennessee to Dyersburg. It's a long and winding road, right, Lee? And she and her mother made that trip about 10 days ago, so thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, President Bauer and Vice Chair Reynolds. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. These are always good to hear. Regent Shockey, any reflections on your journey to Dyersburg that day?
Well, Dr. Roy was so nice to give me a map to find me a better way back. I really appreciate that. And my 85-year-old mother rode shotgun with me. But it is such a wonderful area and so many great people. And the Donner family is just amazing. And I really enjoyed spending the evening with them all. It was a great opportunity to talk to the people in the community. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. I really did enjoy it.
Well, thank you for taking the time to be our representative. That was excellent. Thank you. Well done. Thanks to you both and to Dr. Boyer. We have no unfinished business to come before the board at this time, so we will move into new business. And with that, I will call on Regent Duckett for the Finance and Business Operations Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After multiple meetings over the last several months, the committee report before you takes into account the financial conditions of our institutions and includes recommendations on maintenance and tuition and mandatory fees. Before I summarize the committee report, Chancellor Tiden, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Chairman Duckett. I again would just like to thank the committee that has worked so hard on this. This has been months of work coming to the conclusion of this report. I would like to thank Vice Chancellor Gibbs and his team for the outstanding efforts that they put forth to make sure that we had analyzed every aspect of our budget to see where was the most important part for us to increase our tuition in dollars. And so thanks to each of you for the work that you've done on this.
Thank you, Chancellor. For the members of the board, as well as for the public's information, the local government institutions, they have a legal obligation to publicly post their budgets for public comment. The law is designed to enhance transparency regarding financial operations of those institutions. That law does not apply to the Board of Regents. However, we believe in transparency as well. And to that end, under the law, they have to post it. The local government institutions have to post their budget and financial information 15 days prior to any action on them. Following our June 4th special call meeting, we posted our budgets on our website. They have been on the website for 17 days, as well as we've had 2 to 3 media outlets who have also communicated our link to the public. So wanted to share with the members that we are doing all that we can to ensure that our financial matters are as transparent as possible, and we are going above and beyond to do the things necessary to get that information out. Let me start with my official report by indicating that the recommendations for the community colleges is an increase of 2.45% with a 2.42% increase recommended at the TCATs. We estimate this raises $8.1 million that will be used by the institutions to fund priority needs. In its report, the committee recommends approval of the operating budgets for the colleges, TCATs, and the system office totaling $1.14 billion for fiscal year 2018-2019 and $1.13 billion for fiscal year 2019-2020. The recommended budgets are based on the level of state funds recommended in the governor's budget, as well as early estimates of factors such as enrollment growth and availability of federal funds. The funds affect the full effect of the approved fees, increases, and any enrollment changes will be included in the October revised budget. In addition, the committee considered the estimated and proposed local government institutions budget under the board's policy on consideration of university budgets. You will recall this policy was developed to guide the board's consideration of university budgets under the Focus Act. Within its report, the committee recommends approval of the local government institutions budgets as required by this policy. Recommend capital budget requests for 2020-2021 fiscal year were provided for the committee. As committee chair, I move that the board approve the report of the June 20th, 2019 meeting of the Committee on Finance and Business Operations, which includes maintenance fee, tuition, and mandatory fee recommendations for 2019-2020, the operating budget for fiscal year 2018-2019, and 2019-2020, and capital budget requests for fiscal year 2020 and 2021 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion. May we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Regent Griscom. So any discussion on the Finance and Business Operations Committee report? Hearing none, since this does involve financial matters and tuition and fee increases, we need a roll call vote. Madam Secretary.
Thank you. Regent Apple? Aye. Regent Burdine?
Aye.
Regent Duckett?
Aye.
Regent Gill?
Aye.
Regent Green? Aye. Regent Griscom? Aye. Regent Hatch?
Aye.
Regent Prescott? Vice Chair Reynolds? Aye. Regent Roman? Aye. Regent Shockey?
Aye.
Regent Summons?
Aye.
Regent Varlin? Regent White?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And thanks again to the committee and the staff, as the Chancellor said, for some very thoughtful work over these past few months. There's been a great deal of work out of the Personnel and Compensation Committee as well over these past few weeks. Regent Hatch, would you please present your report?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. The Personnel and Compensation Committee met in regular session on Thursday, June the 20th to review and recommend approval of the following items: tenure and promotion recommendations for the community colleges, tenure and promotion recommendations for the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology, policy revisions to faculty promotion at community colleges, academic tenure for community colleges, and faculty compensation during summer session and intersessions. Policy revision to general personnel to increase part-time faculty compensation rates, faculty promotional increases, new and amended compensation plans for 3 colleges, Cleveland State, Nashville State, and Southwest Tennessee Community College. System-wide compensation strategies for the 2% salary pool provided through the state budget to be paid effectively July the 1st, as well as proposed increases for institutional funds to be submitted at the December board meeting, executive incentive compensation plan payments for 29 eligible participants, President Emeritus contracts for 6 colleges. And finally, the evaluation of the Chancellor for the 2017-2019 period, which was based on feedback received from board members, presidents, system office, executive staff, and key legislators. As committee chair, I move that the board approve the report of the June 20, 2019 meeting of the Committee on Personnel and Compensation as presented.
Thank you, Chairman Hatch. We have a motion and need a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Regent Green. Any discussion? If not, this also requires a roll call vote. Sandra?
Thank you. Regent Apple?
Aye.
Regent Burdine?
Aye.
Regent Duckett?
Aye.
Regent Gill?
Aye.
Regent Green?
Aye.
Regent Griscom? Regent Hatch?
Aye.
Regent Prescott, are you on the line now? Vice Chair Reynolds? Regent Roman?
Aye.
Regent Shockey?
Aye.
Regent Summons?
Aye.
Regent Varlin? Regent White?
Aye.
Regent Prescott? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We have 2 policies that we did a large number of policy work, a big amount of policy work yesterday in committee, but we have 2 policies that will need to come before the full board here over these next few minutes. One Vice Chancellor Thompson referenced, and that's a revised policy on diversity. Where did we lose Dr. Thompson?
She's coming.
There she is.
Yes, you should have before you revisions to policy 1090000, diversity. The summary of the proposed substantive revisions are the addition of an equity statement modeled on the Achieving the Dream Model Equity Statement and updates to the roles and responsibilities to reflect changes post-focus. The proposal has been reviewed, discussed, and approved by Academic Affairs Subcouncil, Faculty Subcouncil, Student Affairs Subcouncil, and the President's Council, and the staff recommend approval.
Any questions for Vice Chancellor Thompson? I know this was in everybody's book, so there's been time to review it. We do need a motion to approve if there's no questions. Thank you, Regent Griscom. A second. Regent Duckett, thank you. If there is no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you. Well done. General Counsel Moody, one additional policy to update.
Yes, I bring to you some revisions to the development and approval of policies and procedures that you first approved in 2017. It originally called for a policy review committee to do some things at certain points, and it has proven to be an administrative burden to call together a policy review committee. So the revisions to the policy are made to reflect the way that we have been doing this, which is if somebody brings a policy that would normally, we had called for review by the policy review committee, the general counsel in consultation with the chancellor will determine which subcommittees that the policy needs to go to for review. And then it also provides that the chancellor in consultation with executive staff can determine that things go directly either to the president's council and or the board if there's no need to go to the subcommittees. So those are the substantive changes to the policy, and I recommend approval.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of Mary? If not, we will need a motion to approve this change.
So moved.
Okay. Regent White, Regent
Second.
Burdine, would you like to second? Thank you very much. If there is no discussion, we will act on this with a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chancellor, you are up with 3 building namings, which is always exciting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The naming committee at Roane State Community College requests that the building known as the Technology Building on the Roane County campus be renamed the Ken Yeager Building. Senator Ken Yeager is a passionate advocate for higher education in his home community, Roane County, and across his senatorial district. His many contributions to Roane State Community College in the state of Tennessee include service on the faculty and as Dean of the Roane State College of Business and Technology from 1978 to 2008, advocacy for state funding of the Henry Stafford East Tennessee Agricultural Exposition Center, and subsequent improvements totaling approximately $16.2 million. Advocacy for $1 million to build a science laboratory wing at the Roane State Campbell County Higher Education Center, and an addition that assures students from rural areas can take core science classes close to home. Sponsorship of the Middle College Scholarship Program, which to date has funded scholarships to over 223 students in his Senate district, and establishment of the Melinda Raby Yeager Scholarship for Roane County. For all that Senator Yeager has done for education and for Roane State, I am pleased to bring this naming request before you for your consideration.
Thank you, Chancellor. We need a motion to approve the naming at Roane State in honor of Senator Yeager.
So moved.
Regent Varlin, a second, Regent
Second.
Griscom. Oh, thank you, Regent Hatch as well. Any discussion? If not, voice vote to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. President Whaley, there you are. Any additional comments?
Yes, thank you again, Madam Vice Chair, Chancellor, members of the board. This really means a lot to us, and thank you for honoring Senator Yeager in this way. There is no way for me to tell you a full list. The Chancellor did a great job of all the things that he has done for Roane State Community College, and those are many, particularly monetarily, but not exclusively so, from the years that he spent as one of the most beloved adjunct faculty members in history at our college, to the years that he spent as a faculty member full-time and as a dean, to now the passion that he has day in and day out. I promise you there is no one who goes to the General Assembly and fights harder for students than Senator Ken Yeager does. And this is an honor for us to get to honor him this way. So thank you for that, and on behalf of all the folks at Roane State and the committee who recommended this. So we truly, truly appreciate it.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Thank you very much. Chancellor?
The naming committee at Volunteer State Community College requests that the softball complex be named the Dr. Warren and Chris Nichols Softball Complex in honor of Dr. Warren Nichols, the second president of Volunteer State Community College, who served from 2003 to 2011, and his wife, Chris Nichols. Dr. Nichols made significant contributions to the campus of Volunteer State, and the committee recommends there to be a legacy to honor him. He provided strong leadership at a transition time in the history of the college. And among his many accomplishments, Dr. Nichols fought to get funding for the softball complex, which included private fundraising. Dr. Nichols was a strong supporter of our student athletes and athletics in general. His commitment to ensure that women's softball had facilities that were comparable to baseball never wavered. It was very fitting that his efforts and support also led to the first Vol State Softball State Championship on his watch and at that very complex. His vision was to have a functional as well as aesthetically pleasing softball complex. He continued his personal support by volunteering during the games and tournaments in the concession stand and gatekeeping. And it's even been said that you could find him working on the field in the evenings, pulling maintenance duty. Chris, his wife, was the first lady of Vol State and an active supporter of the college. She was the hostess for many college events and special occasions. She served on all of the foundation event committees, including the fall fundraising dinner and the spring women's lunch. She also opened their home for events benefiting the college. Chris was an ardent advocate for the college in the community, whether it was basketball, baseball, or softball. Dr. Nichols and his wife, Chris, attended just about every game. This would be a fitting tribute of their dedication to Volunteer State Community College and the athletic program, and I am honored to bring this naming request before you today.
A motion to approve. Regent Burdine, thank you. A second. Regent Varlin, thank you very much. Any discussion? So we all remember Warren and Chris fondly. I guess they're still in Texas?
They are still in Texas.
Okay, very good. We also need a roll call vote to approve this honor for the Nichols. All in favor? A roll call, voice vote to approve this honor for the Nichols. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much and all the best. Dr. Faulkner, would you please come forward for any comments? And please give our regards to them when you get back in touch about this. Wonder if he does maintenance on the softball field in Texas.
What's that?
I said, I wonder if he's doing any maintenance if he has a softball field in Texas.
I don't know if he has a softball field. I did hear that he was able to get a local bond issue passed for $80 million for the college there, one of the first things that he had to do when he arrived. So Dr. Nichols and Chris were instrumental in the life of this college, and of course Dr. Nichols went on to serve as Vice Chancellor for community colleges as well. They're still both highly regarded in the community. They still have family here, and so they're back from time to time. Given their advocacy and support for athletics and for softball in particular, this is a fitting way to honor their legacy. And also I think it's appropriate that this action take place when the board is meeting at Vol State. So thank you very much. I'll be sure and let him know quickly.
Please do. Thank you. Thank you for making this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Chancellor, one final naming.
Yes, one more. The naming committee at Pellissippi State requests that the second building, which will be built on the Blount County campus, be named the Ruth and Steve West Workforce Development Center in honor of Ruth and Steve West. Ruth and Steve West have been outstanding supporters of Pellissippi State since 1988. Ruth served on the Pellissippi State Foundation Board of Trustees from 1989 to 1993. The West were driving forces behind the creation of the college's Blount County campus, which opened its doors in its current location on the Lamar Alexander Parkway in 2010. The couple provided leadership on the campaign cabinet and participated in numerous college-sponsored special events to raise awareness and support for the new campus. In addition to their major gift that jump-started the campaign, the couple solicited an additional $2.3 million from key leaders within the community. Since the opening of the Blount campus, the West have continued their advocacy for workforce development and Pellissippi State's ability to meet the demand. In response to the county's recruitment of 5,300 new jobs and $2.8 billion in new capital investment, local governments, industry, and education partners have united to support a new 52,000 square foot workforce development center to be housed on the Blount County campus. Once again, the West have demonstrated their support with a financial commitment of $1 million. In total, the couple has provided more than $1.5 million in donations to support capital expansion and student scholarships. Due to their longtime support of Pellissippi State's mission to educate and provide vital workforce development, the college's building naming committee would like to recommend the following designation in their honor by naming the building the Ruth and Steve West Workforce Development Center. I am pleased to bring this request before the board today.
Excellent. We once again need a motion to approve. I'm looking at Regent Varlin, who probably knows the West.
I do. They're lovely people. They really are. So
Would you like to?
I'd love to make a motion.
Thank you very much. And we need a second? Oh, Regent Carlos, rather. Thank you. Regent Gonzalez, thank you very much for that second. Do you know the West from your time at Pellissippi? Okay. They're really extraordinary people, as Regent Varlin just
West
said.
Chevrolet, I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's,
Yeah. No, great folks. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. President Wise.
Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, members of the board, I want to
let you know how grateful I am for your approval of this naming request for the new Workforce Development Center. Blount County takes great pride in its partnership work in economic and community development. We're grateful to be partners with President Cheney at TCAT Knoxville on this project. She's playing a key role in developing this and helping us together meet the workforce needs of this community. Just to add a little bit to what the Chancellor said, in addition to building a very successful family business, Steve and Ruth have been actively engaged citizens during their time in this community, serving public office, playing leadership roles in local philanthropic organizations, including Pellissippi State. They've got a more than 30-year history with us as an institution, serving on our board, providing their own contributions, encouraging other folks to contribute. I'm going to use a phrase that Dr. Faulkner used earlier in describing his staff as educators, and I would describe the West as educators as well in terms of the way they talk about philanthropy publicly in our community, that they have been blessed through their business that they've developed over the course of years. They've taught their children, but not only their children, they serve as an example to other members in the community. Steve and Ruth were on campus Wednesday as we recognized another donor, and when Steve spoke, he said, "We have been blessed, we've been given a good fortune, we want to return it to the community and encourage others to do so." He also mentioned that they sell cars, but they are they are wonderful people to have in our community. We are, I'm sure they're going to be honored to have their name on that building because of their commitment, but we are honored to be associated with such good people in our community. Thank you for your support.
Thank you very much, and thank you for mentioning your partnership with the TCAT on this, because that's what it's all about in workforce development. So well done, President Wise. So we're now about to enter a couple of bittersweet moments as we have a resolution of appreciation for our faculty, Regent William Summons. It's hard to believe it's been 2 years, but I would like to call on Regent Shockey, if she would, to read the resolution.
Okay, and I am going to read it with a heavy heart.
Aww.
Whereas the Tennessee Board of Regents in regular session at Volunteer State Community College in Gallatin, Tennessee, wishes to express its sincere appreciation to Mr. William Summons for his service as faculty regent, and whereas he was appointed to this position by the Honorable Bill Haslam, Governor of the State of Tennessee, for the 2017 through 2019 academic years, and whereas he has fulfilled his responsibilities in an exemplary manner by contributing to the governance of the institutions within the purview of the board by presenting the views of faculty across the system, always with the overarching goal of educational quality and student success, and whereas he has provided leadership, guidance, and expertise to the board in the areas of articulation and student life, and has represented his colleagues and students of the TBR system with unwavering and distinguished service, and whereas he actively devoted his time and attention to deliberations of the Committee on Academic Policies and Programs and the Committee on Finance and Business Operations, where he brought invaluable insight from the campus level. And whereas during his tenure with the board, he unfailingly fulfilled his responsibilities through active participation in board deliberations and contributed greatly to the governance of the system, and whereas he proudly represented the board at commencements, groundbreaking ceremonies, building dedications, legislative events, and receptions, and whereas Mr. Summons is a devoted educator who has dedicated his career to the success of students, primarily as an instructor and professor of mathematics at Southwest Tennessee Community College and its predecessor, Shelby State Community College, as well as a faculty leader, including service on various search committees, Faculty Senate President, Chair of the TBR Faculty Subcouncil, and Chair and members of various academic committees at the college. And whereas he is an individual of high integrity and wisdom with a sincere interest in the welfare of the Tennessee Board of Regents system and Tennessee higher education in general, now therefore be it resolved that the Tennessee Board of Regents system expresses its sincere appreciation to Mr. William Summons for his dedication and contributions to the board and its institutions, and extends best wishes to him in all his future pursuits.
Are you offering the resolution as a motion?
I am definitely offering the resolution.
Thank you, Regent Shockey, and I believe we have a second.
Yes, ma'am. It's my pleasure to second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? I think Regent Hatch had a comment for sure.
Yes, I do. So, Bill, we met 3 years ago on the on the Chancellor Search Committee, and that was a pretty cool event. And then we both we joined the board at the same time, 2 years ago right now. And it was like joining this really cool fraternity, and we were both pledges at the same time.
Aw.
So we tried to kind of figure it out together, and I know we broke bread a few times and emailed each other and talked over the phone to see how we could best prevent the hazing from the senior folks, like Hunter to my left over here. We were able to do that. We even played golf together. So one of the things I learned about you is that you're a really good person. You're a good family man. You care about your students. And this is like the ultimate compliment I can give you. I think about you as I remember some of the educators back in my day in high school and community college, and how fondly I think of them. And I think you're cut from that cloth, and it's been a pleasure knowing you and working with you.
Any other comments? Yes, Regent Griscom.
Bill, it's been a real pleasure to get to know you, not just as a regent, but as a person. But also, I just wanted to say the insights you provided to us as a faculty member have been very helpful in our deliberations. So thank you so much, and I hope you get that grandchild.
Yes, Regent Summons and I also met at the Chancellor's Search, and then we went on to travel together with a group of other people, not just us, last year to Europe last May in Germany and France, and we had a wonderful time getting to know each other even better, and also with quite a few of the presidents, et cetera. But Bill, it's just been a pleasure to get to know you, both as a regent and just as a friend, and I appreciate your friendship and everything you brought to the Board of Regents. Thank you so much.
Regent Duffy?
Yes. I've had the pleasure, or I guess I can start by saying Bill probably knew of me before I got to truly know him, by virtue of some of the things I was doing there in the community. But when we've served on 2 search committees together. The first was the search committee for the president of Southwest Tennessee Community College, and the other was the search committee for the chancellor. And one of the things that I quickly came to know about Bill is that he is a man of faith. He is a man of principle. And the thing that I really like about him is even if he disagrees with you, he has a polite way of getting his point across. So it's not that you end up becoming enemies over a single issue. And I have respected that with you, Bill. Hate I'm not going to be riding back to Memphis with you today so we could continue conversations, but I wanted to say publicly how much I respect the role you have played, not just for Southwest, but as a member of this board. Thanks.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the resolution of appreciation for William Summons, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Regent Summons, the floor is yours.
Wow. Just thank you. I'm humbled by all the comments and the resolution itself. And I just want to say it's just been an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to serve in this capacity, to serve our students across the state. It really is. And secondly, how much I value each of your friendships. I've got to know most of you personally, and it's just been wonderful. I've also got to know people at the board, the main office, what a great group there, and also even some of these college presidents and things like that we were able to meet with, travel together, and things like that. So just thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for supporting me and all that you do for TBR.
We are honored to know you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Our second resolution of appreciation today is for our student regent, Juan Carlos Gonzalez Roman. And what great contributions you have made along the way. I am pleased to call on Regent Varlin to read this resolution of appreciation.
Yes, and it is my pleasure. Whereas the Tennessee Board of Regents in regular session at Volunteer State Community College in Gallatin Tennessee wishes to express its sincere appreciation to Mr. Juan Carlos Gonzalez Roman for his dedicated and valuable service as student regent. And whereas Mr. Roman was appointed student regent by the Honorable Bill Haslam, Governor of the State of Tennessee, for the 2018-2019 academic year. And whereas he is a 2019 graduate of Pellissippi State Community College with a double major in accounting and mathematics, whereas while enrolled at Pellissippi State, he fulfilled his passion and purpose to help students as much as possible by being a new student orientation leader and tutor in Spanish and mathematics. And whereas Mr. Roman's contributions to higher education are commendable and have included serving on the TBR SGA President's Council and providing insight on important issues and legislation impacting students and student life on TBR campuses. And whereas he proudly represents the board by attending and speaking at building dedications, legislative events, receptions, and the Walter State Community College 2019 spring commencement. And whereas he has used his experiences and unique perspective to devote considerable time and effort as a member of the Committee on Academic Policies and Programs and Economic and Community Development Committee. And whereas during his tenure with the board, Mr. Roman unfailingly fulfilled his responsibilities through active and eager participation in board deliberations and contributed greatly to the governance of the system. And as a board member, he has been an instrument of positive and effective change. And whereas he is an individual of high integrity and wisdom and truly a sincere interest in the welfare of the Tennessee Board of Regents system and Tennessee higher education. And whereas his tenure has been marked by selfless support of the system, its students, and a number of its individual institutions, now therefore be it resolved that the Tennessee Board of Regents expresses its sincere appreciation to Mr. Juan Carlos Gonzalez Roman for his dedication and many contributions to the Tennessee Board of Regents system and wishes him well in his future endeavors. And I will make a motion to accept this resolution.
Thank you very much, Regent Barlin. A second, please. Thank you very much, Regent White. Any discussion?
I'd like to say something in
Please.
addition to what I said. First of all, just to continue and let you know that you're enrolled for fall, right, at UT. And this summer, you're an intern in UT's middle school camp teaching chemistry and math. Is that correct this summer? Well, I just want to wish you well, and it has been an absolute pleasure to get to know you and see you at meetings and on campus, Carlos, you and your lovely wife. It's been a pleasure and appreciate so much everything that you brought to the table. It's been just fun to get to know you and appreciate you and wish you the best.
What are you majoring in at UT this fall?
Mathematics right now. I did change my major from it's still mathematics, but I'm going into education as well. So I want to put a hold on an accountant as being an accountant, but I still love numbers and everything. But yeah. So.
You may want to stay in touch with Regent Gill, who has an accounting background.
Actually, Regents Guild's success in accounting was that I was hired on by one of the largest firms in the world and stayed there such a short period of time they did not find out I was a terrible accountant.
Hold that thought for 1 second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the resolution to honor our student regent, Carlos Roman, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. The floor is yours, Regent Roman.
I'm deeply humbled by that resolution, and it's. I would like to start off by saying that if someone told me that I was going to be on the Board of Regents and actually graduating college 13 years ago, I would have been like, "You're crazy," because like that door was closed to me back at that time. Of course, outside, I guess, issues from, actually achieving my dream or going to pursue my dream. But I'm very fortunate that I'm now having the opportunity to actually pursue that dream of college education and being an example for not just my family, but for other students. And it wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for the Access and Diversity Director, Ms. Gail Wood, and the possibilities that she helped me see through, being at Pellissippi State. And of course, having the support from Dr. Wise and all the faculty at Pellissippi it just felt like just having someone in your corner and actually having support to push you forward. It's been really humbling experience, really honorable experience being here as a fellow regent, and your support as well to motivate me with being the regent and stuff like that. So I really am grateful for all of you. Thank you.
We are grateful to you. Do you have any parting advice for this board?
All I can say is that there are students or people that have my similar background as far as I was once undocumented, and that's why college was closed to me. And all I can say is that there's another demographic that maybe we're not seeing, or maybe have not taken into consideration, maybe. And I'm very teary-eyed when it comes to this because, again, I'm living a dream that I've been chasing for 13 years. So I guess taking into consideration those students that don't have that opportunity.
Thank you for those passionate words. And my friend, there is no door closed to you. So we're just honored to know you. For our last agenda item, I would like to turn the floor over to Regent Griscom, please.
And I promise you, I'm not going to be doing this in my newly adopted name and role as Hunter. Okay? So feel relieved.
Thank you.
So thank you, Madam Vice Chair. It is time for us to elect a new Vice Chair for the Board of Regents. So with that, I'd like to call for nominations to serve as Vice Chair for 2019 through 2020. Do I have a nomination?
I would like to nominate the current Vice Chair, Emily Reynolds, to continue to serve as Vice Chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations from the board? If not, I will ask for a voice vote. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You got it again.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. It is an honor to be part of this team, so I thank you all very much, and we'll prepare for another great year together, so thank you. With that, Chancellor, and thank you, Regent Griscom, for
not being my alter ego.
That's right. That's right. And for your friendship. Chancellor, any closing announcements or comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. To Carlos, again, I want to add my gratitude to you for the work that you've done on this board. You have given the student voice to us in a way that we've not always had. So thank you for that. And you truly are going to be a leader, not only in the state, but I feel nationally. People are going to know who you are. So thank you very much. To Bill, you have been sage advice to me on more than one occasion, and I thank you greatly. And what many of you don't know is I've been twisting Bill's arm ever since I realized that he had to roll off the board, and he's agreed to continue to help me in some areas on faculty initiatives that we're working on. And so I'm very appreciative to what you've done to help us. So thank you to both of you for the work that you've done. I also received some not so nice news last week that we have a retirement coming up. Dr. Randy Schulte, would you please stand and just let us recognize you? Dr. Schulte's in the room. Dr. Schulte joined the TBR system office in 2007, serving 12 years at Chattanooga State Community College prior to that in several roles, including Assistant Dean for Arts and Sciences, Dean for Business and Information Systems, the Dean for and Director of the Hospitality Management Program prior to coming to us as our Vice Chancellor. He's going to be leaving some very big shoes to fill. We're going to do a more formal resolution for Randy at our September meeting, but I did not want to let this day pass without recognizing him because he will actually be leaving the end of August. We will ask him to come back so that we can formally recognize him. Upon his departure, I have asked Dr. Deaton to please serve as interim Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, and we will begin the search for a new Vice Chancellor. We will never have another one like Dr. Schulte. He is going to be very difficult to replace. We are very grateful to him. So thank you, Randy, for all that you have done for our system. I'd like to once again thank Volunteer State, our TCATs that participated in this board meeting. You have made this an outstanding experience for us. To our Achieving a Dream individuals that came from long distances to be with us today, thank you again so much for sharing what you're working on and how that impacts us as a system. Thank you so much.
Well said. Thank you, Chancellor. Just a couple of housekeeping things. In September, we will be at the new Greenville campus of Walters State Community College, so that is exciting. And that's September 19 and 20. We will be together, as I mentioned earlier today, in August for this exciting governance meeting that Governor Lee is convening at the University of Memphis, so look forward to seeing everyone there. Your surveys are at each place. If you'll take a moment to fill those out and return it to Sanja, that would be extremely helpful. And to Dr. Faulkner, from the hospitality has just been outstanding. From the moment we arrived to last night's session with the Bluegrass Ablaze, and hearing our own Dr. Treva Berriman belt out a little Patsy Cline. That was great fun. Who knew, as everyone was saying throughout the evening, that was fun. To have our Maxine Smith Fellows with us is always quite special. We have learned today, thanks to that great Achieving the Dream presentation, to focus on each student, that it's okay to nag and to use the word accountability in this system, and we are indeed a system. To celebrate both our short and long-term victories and to have courageous conversations, which I do believe this group often does and for which we're all grateful. Just as Carlos said so beautifully, I'll borrow from Ms. Moore's comments in that really moving video this morning. With TBR, you can reach the top of the mountain. So this has been a very significant meeting. And most importantly, as we leave here today, be safe. Have a good summer. We will all stay in touch. And if there are no objections, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.